Williams, sadly we lost Sir Frank over the winter, but Williams carrying on, of course. FW44, a really interesting car. I've got to say that the video you see behind us isn't the FW44. It is the launch livery car, you know, just a show car. But the actual car, which now has turned a wheel, is a really nice car, Scarbs. Well, I say nice. It's an interesting car, Scarbs.
It's, yeah, for me, it's one of the most interesting cars out there. I mean, I think Ferrari maybe in a sort of similar vein, but the Williams, for me, seems to be the most radical car that we've had in Formula One for many years, particularly in terms of how they've packaged the middle of the car, which is completely unlike anything we've ever seen before. And they've got two things going on there. If we can remember last year, Alpine had this big humped centre body where they had lots of cooling, lots of centerline cooling, and relatively small side pods. Williams have now followed that centerline cooling, a much bigger inlet over the roll hoop. You can see the fat bodywork on the engine cover behind it. But then they've shrunk the side pods down to literally just a couple of scoops that run in. They look more like brake ducts than side pods. But then it goes even further, and this is where the interest for me really started to kind of come up with the FW44, because you've got quite large side pod inlets, and if you look into them, you can see that they're split in the middle with the side impact protection beam, which is obviously there to help you in a T-bone accident. But what you have above and below that is different. Below, you can see that there's a radiator there. So you've got some radiators in these kind of vestigial side pods, almost as you would probably remember the FW08 in 83, with just teeny tiny little side pods, but dragged forwards.
8C, I think.
It was the C, yeah. That's probably right. I think you're in 6-wheel, 4-wheel.
Yeah, whatever,
yeah. And then the area above this doesn't appear to have a radiator inside it. So then what are they doing with this top section of side pod? Which you have to have a certain amount of bodywork in that area in order to meet the regulations. Are they trying to feed air in through sideways to this centerline cooling that you have? Or, which is my theory, is they're actually trying to create almost like a top wing effect to the side pod. And they're going to blow some of their air straight out on louvers on the back surface of the side pods as it slopes down towards the floor. I can't tell you. We've only got 3 pictures, I think, of the car at this stage. Testing and the shakedown, which hopefully will reveal so much more. Now, we've seen some grainy video images of the car leaving the pits, and you can see there are some holes on the back of the side pods, but not what I would have expected. So watch this space. Or wait and see.
Well, and just to clarify, and what would that give them additional downforce at the back, or would it just make the rear wing more effective?
Well, actually, that effect will actually create a little bit of lift. But what they're doing is actually trying to generate lots of airflow passing down the slope of the side pods over towards the top of the diffusers and the beam wing, which potentially could give you, a lot more downforce, makes it much more
double
efficient.
diffuser.
It's not into that range of silver bullets. This is incredible, but it is certainly something very different.
Wow.
And it's quite radical. It's quite progressive for Williams.
Good for them.
They've had interesting cars over recent years, but never really actually hit the performance levels.
And I guess the other point here is that if that works, and there will be a point in either the Barcelona or Bahrain tests when we know if it works, because suddenly if Nicholas Latifi or Alex Albon are really quick, we'll know it works. It's going to be difficult for everybody to copy it because of what they've had to do to the architecture of the radiators to get create that, right?
I think teams could adapt their cars to take that approach, and certainly if it was like a double diffuser kind of level of performance, I don't think it is.
Okay.
But let's say, for example,
silver bullet sounds a little bit better.
If it was, then they can add bodywork around the roll hoop, because the actual roll hoop isn't the bit that you see. It was normally just a little spike, as you probably saw on some Mercedes videos, and then repackage it.
But would they not? They wouldn't be able to get the side pod narrowness.
It would take a lot of work. So I think the question would be to get the reward, it has to be a very big reward to put that level of effort in. And, I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I'd be surprised if anyone did. But perhaps going into next season, maybe if it does work, maybe people would move towards it. What's been quite interesting is generally in terms of teams using the roll hoop to cool other things, that's reduced this year. Because you've got such large side pods, the teams seem to be quite happy to fill them with all of the radiators and have a slimmer rear body. So it's unusual that Williams have gone the opposite direction. And I believe that Alpine, when we eventually see their car, will have something similar in terms of centerline cooling to they had last year. I don't know if they've got the radical side pods with it. We'll wait and see.
Alpine and Alfa Romeo being launched this week, so we'll give you some updates on those with Scarbs. We'll probably do them with an audio link. just going back to the Williams, those Scarbs, it seems to be the subjects now. Front suspension, mirror mounts, the two variables.
Yeah, front suspension, again, it all looks fairly normal. Push rod at the front, pull rod at the rear, if I remember correctly. The front of the car is a little bit different. Their nose is quite rounded, quite high, and they've loaded the centre of the wing much more, which is unusual. Again, we've spoken previously that I think if you load the middle of the wing too much, then you rob the underbody of airflow. Yeah, clearly Williams have thought about this, and maybe they've got some way with the arrangement of the front suspension and maybe even with the front of the car that they've found a way to kind of recover that. They've also got one clever little trick. Now, if you look inside the front of the tunnels on every car, you're allowed to have 4 fences in each side, and these will direct the airflow either out or along the underneath of the car, creating vortices, lower the pressure, gives you lots of downforce. They're supposed to go all the way to the front of the floor, and you can have the top of the tunnel meet them effectively, so you kind of get a wedge shape.
Right.
Williams have actually cut off the roof of the floor, and that allows them to bring these fences up and actually almost work like barge boards above the floor as well as below it. Really clever little playing with the regulations.
That to me reeks of a team that's got a bit more wind tunnel testing time than some of the others, sort of thing that you can just play around with in the tunnel,
yeah,
correct?
It's one of those things someone's really thought quite laterally about.
And that's
the
these new regulations working in a way. It's giving teams like Williams a bit more scope to be imaginative, whereas a Mercedes or a Red Bull are much more restricted. Mirror mounts. What's happening with the mirror mounts on the Williams?
Quite conventional. So far. Now, we've seen lots of cars. You know, I mean, the AlphaTauri was launched with virtually nothing, and we've seen in the early pictures they've got something quite funky going on there. Red Bull, Mercedes. So all of that will be one of those little things that we'll probably pick up mid-season, that they'll do an update and they'll put these big, ridiculous mirror mounts on the car, or
seems extraordinary, I think, to us, certainly to me, that we don't have the rear cameras now on the cars for this new era of Formula One. I mean, what is this all about, all this mirror mount business? It's ridiculous.
It does seem one of these things that's long overdue. Visibility inside the cars is getting more and more of a problem.
Yeah.
And I know there are solutions out there. If you look at what fighter pilots are using, they actually have systems now linked in with the cameras that if you have your VR headset on, it's like you have no car around you at all. You could literally see where your rival is relative to your front tyres in a kind of a virtual way. Even that little strip of windscreen that we see, the jagged windscreen, you can actually get materials now, you can actually project onto them, so you could actually have the rear view mirror just in the cockpit.
I'm amazed they haven't gone that route. I guess they just think the technology is not quite there, and we will eventually.
They've had a lot to cope with over the past few years, getting these regulations ready,
with
looking
COVID
to 2026, and obviously with COVID, you can't always be bringing out big new ideas. But I'm sure that technology is there. I know that people are talking to the FIA about it, so we'll just see what develops from that.
Meantime, full marks to Williams for doing something a little bit different. Good to see.